I don't even know where to start, but I need to get this off my chest because it's been eating at me for weeks. Maybe longer. Maybe since the day I realized something in me was broken. Or maybe just craving. My life looked perfect on the outside. A stable relationship, a decent job, the kind of routine that everyone tells you is happiness. But under all that structure was something quieter, hungrier. Something I tried to ignore. It started with a conversation. That's all it was at first. I ran into him outside the building during my lunch break. He was leaning against the brick wall with a cigarette between his fingers. Not smoking it, just holding it. More like a habit than an addiction. He looked over and smiled like we'd met before, even though we hadn't. He said something sarcastic about the weather, and I laughed more than I should have. I didn't even realize I was smiling until I walked away and caught my reflection in the glass door. That night, I didn't tell my partner about it. Not because I thought it was wrong, at least that's what I told myself, but because it felt like mine. A moment just for me. The next few days, I found myself hoping he'd be outside again. And he was. Every time. Like he knew I'd come back. We never talked about anything deep. Just small talk, teasing, that back and forth that feels more like flirting than either of us admitted. He was funny in a way that caught me off guard. Honest in a way that felt dangerous. And when he looked at me, really looked, I felt seen. Not in the way my partner saw me, through the lens of shared bills and grocery lists and whose turn is it to cook, but in a way that felt sharp, new, unfiltered. I started taking longer breaks. Started wearing the perfume I used to save for dates. Started checking my reflection in the elevator mirror before I stepped out. He noticed. He always noticed. New earrings, he'd ask, and I'd laugh, pretending it wasn't intentional. You always this sneaky, he'd say, and I'd smile like it was a joke. But it wasn't. Not really. Home, everything felt duller. The dinners, the conversations, the sex, when it happened, was mechanical, predictable. I tried to shake it off, to focus on the life I'd built. But I kept replaying moments with him in my head. The way he leaned closer when he talked. The way he made me feel lighter, looser. My partner would talk about weekend plans or bills and I'd nod, but my mind was somewhere else. Outside that building, next to that man, under the invisible tension we kept pretending not to feel. I told myself it was harmless. Just attention. Just fantasy. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But I knew that was a lie the second he asked if I wanted to grab coffee. Not during lunch, but after work. A real invitation. A real line being drawn in the sand. Said no. I said it too quickly. And then I regretted it. Not because I wanted coffee, but because I wanted to say yes. The next day I didn't see him. The day after that he was there but quieter. Cooler. Like he'd pulled back. Like he was done playing. That did something to me. Made me anxious. Made me realize how much I craved the attention. The connection. The escape. I hated how much I missed it. So I brought him a coffee. He looked surprised. Smiled slowly. Took it like it meant more than caffeine. We didn't say much that day, but something shifted between us. We weren't pretending anymore. Every word, every glance, every silence. Loaded. Heavy. That night, I lay next to my partner, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing. He reached for me and I let him, but I felt disconnected, miles away. I went through the motions, made the right sounds, played my part. But afterward I felt hollow. Not guilty. Just lost. Like I wasn't in my own body anymore. I started dreaming about him. Not sexually, at least not at first. Just dreams where we talked. Where he listened. Where I wasn't invisible. I woke up missing someone I barely knew. I started checking my phone for no reason. Started walking by his spot even when I didn't have to. Then one afternoon he wasn't outside. But when I walked into the hallway, he was waiting near the elevator. Close. Too close. He looked at me like he was about to say something but didn't. Instead, he handed me a folded piece of paper. Just a number. Nothing else. I didn't call it. I stared at it all night. I tucked it into the back of a book. I told myself it was over. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. About him. About what I wanted. I never meant for anything to happen. I didn't wake up thinking I'd throw away everything I had. But sometimes desire doesn't ask permission, just grows in the quiet spaces. And when it takes root, it becomes impossible to ignore. I knew I was dancing too close to something dangerous. And I also knew I wasn't ready to walk away. I told myself I'd forget the number, that I wouldn't even think about using it. But within 2 days it was burned into my brain. I didn't call, didn't text. I just saved it in my phone under a fake name. For emergencies. That's what I told myself. Like what we had was some kind of fire I might need to escape into if everything else crumbled. Home I became quieter. Not cold. Just distant in a way I couldn't explain without unraveling the whole truth. My partner noticed, of course. He asked if I was okay. Smiled. Said I was tired. Work stress. Hormones. Anything but the truth. I'd gotten good at lying without really lying. That kind of dishonesty that hides in half smiles and unfinished sentences. I didn't contact him for 3 days. Then, one night, after a stupid argument over nothing, I was alone in the kitchen, phone in my hand, staring at the screen. My thumb hovered. I tapped out a message and deleted it. Then I typed another. Still want that coffee. Simple. Visual. Loaded with everything I didn't want to admit. He replied in under a minute. Thought you'd never ask. We met the next day after work. No coworkers, no office walls. Just 2 people sitting too close in a dim little place that smelled like cinnamon and espresso. We talked about nothing at first. Music, traffic, bad coffee. But every silence stretched a little too long. Every laugh lingered a little too warmly. When he leaned in to ask something, his knee touched mine under the table. I didn't move away. He told me I seemed different. Like I was carrying something heavy. I didn't know how to respond to that. I wanted to tell him everything, but that would have made it too real. So instead, I asked him something stupid about his weekend plans. And he smiled like he saw right through me. Maybe he did. We didn't kiss that night. But when he hugged me goodbye, it was longer than necessary. His hands didn't just rest on my back. They held me like he was trying to memorize the way I felt. And I let him. I stood there, face against his neck, breathing him in like something I wasn't supposed to want but did anyway. The ride home felt longer than usual. My partner texted to ask if I could pick up milk. I stared at the message and suddenly felt like a stranger in my own life. Like I'd stepped out of the person I used to be and wasn't sure how to climb back in. The next time we saw each other, everything was different. There was no pretending anymore. He reached for my hand across the table and I didn't pull away. He said he thought about me more than he should. I said nothing, because anything I said would have come out as yes. He asked if I was happy. It was the first time anyone had asked me that without expecting me to say yes. I opened my mouth, then closed it. He nodded like that was an answer too. I started lying more. Tiny things. Where I'd been. Who I was with. When I got home, I'd kiss my partner on the cheek and say traffic was bad, or work ran late, or someone needed help with a project. Lies that slipped too easily from my mouth. Lies that started to feel like routine. I told myself I was still in control. That nothing had happened yet. But everything had already started happening inside me. The way I checked my phone every 5 minutes. The way I replayed his words when I couldn't sleep. The way I compared the way he looked at me to the way my partner didn't anymore. One night, he asked if I wanted to go for a walk after coffee. We ended up at the park, the one near the office that was always too crowded during the day but almost silent at night. We didn't say much. Just walked. At one point, our fingers brushed and stayed there. I felt his thumb move slowly across my knuckle, and it felt more intimate than anything I'd done in years. He stopped walking, turned to face me, his hand still holding mine. His voice was quiet when he said, "You don't have to say anything. I just need to know if I'm crazy." I couldn't look away. I whispered, "You're not." He leaned in, slowly, carefully, like he was giving me every chance to back out. I didn't. When his lips touched mine, everything else disappeared. No guilt, no rules, no past. Just warmth and want and the sound of my heart pounding like it hadn't in years. We kissed for too long in that empty park. And when we finally pulled apart, I knew there was no going back. I'd crossed something. Something that couldn't be undone with silence or apologies. On the way home, I kept touching my lips. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he held my face, the way his breath shook against mine. I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel pride. I just felt alive in a way that scared me. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't tell him it was a mistake. And I didn't promise myself it wouldn't happen again. Because deep down, I knew it would. It didn't take long before kissing turned into more. The first time it happened, it wasn't planned. No big lead-up. No drawn-out seduction. It was clumsy, fast, filled with nerves and silence afterward. But the way he looked at me, like I was something he'd been waiting to touch for a long time, made me feel like I belonged somewhere again. I remember the way my body reacted. Not just to him but to being wanted. To being held like desire itself was permission. There was no hesitation in him. And I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't think about right or wrong. I only thought about how long it had been since I'd been touched like that. Like I mattered. Like I was someone to be discovered. Afterward, I sat in my car with shaking hands. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I stared at the steering wheel and tried to decide whether I regretted it. I didn't. Not even a little. And that terrified me. The next morning, everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. My partner made coffee, kissed me on the forehead, asked about my plans for the day. I nodded, answered, played the part. Inside, I was somewhere else. I could still feel the weight of his hands on my hips. The taste of him in my mouth. I was replaying everything in loops I couldn't shut off. We didn't stop after that. If anything, we fell deeper into it. It wasn't just sex. It was the way he spoke to me afterward. The way he brushed hair from my face and listened to me talk like every word meant something. We weren't sneaking around like teenagers. We were meeting in quiet places, texting when we knew we shouldn't, pretending it wasn't growing into something bigger than either of us expected. There were moments we laughed about it. How reckless we were being. He'd say things like, "What are we even doing?" But never in a way that suggested we stop. We both knew this wasn't just about lust. It was comfort. A connection that felt stolen and sacred at the same time. At home, the weight of the lie grew heavier. I started pulling away from my partner without realizing it. Shorter replies. Less eye contact. I kept saying I was just tired. That I needed space. He started asking if something was wrong. Said no. Every time I said no, it sounded more like goodbye. The guilt didn't hit all at once. Came in waves. Like when I saw an old photo of us smiling on vacation and felt nothing. Or when he tried to kiss me and I pulled away without meaning to. Or when I caught myself comparing everything. The way he touched me, talked to me, made love to me. With the way it felt when I was with the other man. But the guilt never outweighed the pull. If anything, it made the secret feel even more addictive. Like the more wrong it became, the more I craved it. I told myself it was temporary. Phase. A space I needed to breathe. But it wasn't. I started daydreaming about what it would be like if we were public. If this wasn't hidden. I imagined introducing him to friends, holding his hand in daylight, waking up beside him without panic. I didn't want to destroy anyone's life, but a part of me started wondering if I'd already destroyed mine just by staying where I no longer felt whole. There were close calls. Missed calls I almost answered. Texts I deleted in panic. A scent on my clothes I hadn't noticed until it was too late. He never pressured me to leave or choose. He just kept showing up. Holding me like I belonged to him even if he couldn't say it out loud. I think what surprised me most was how easy it became. The lies. The cover stories. The double life. Should have felt like hell. Didn't. Felt like air. Until one night when he asked, "Do you think about us outside of this?" I knew what he meant. I wanted to lie. To say no, keep it simple. But I said yes. Quietly. Instinctively. He smiled in that sad way that told me he'd been waiting for that answer. Even if it didn't change anything. He never asked me to leave. Never asked me to choose. But I could feel the question sitting between us every time we touched. Every time we kissed with that desperation, like we were running out of time. I wasn't in love. Not fully. But I was falling. Faster than I wanted to admit. I wanted him more than I feared losing everything. And that's when I knew I was too far gone. One afternoon my partner asked if I was cheating. He didn't say it in anger. Just calm, tired, like the thought had been sitting with him for too long. Said no. Too quickly. Too flatly. He nodded. Didn't push. But the look in his eyes told me he didn't believe me. I didn't tell the truth. I didn't confess. I just stared at the wall after he walked away, wondering how I became this version of myself. Someone who could smile at breakfast and lie by lunchtime. Someone who wanted two people in completely different ways. Later that night I got a message from him. Just 3 words. I miss you. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. And I replied, I miss you too. 'Cause I did. And I knew that missing him wasn't going to stop, that I knew it had to end. But I didn't know how to do it without tearing everything apart. The longer I kept both lives going, the more hollow I felt inside. I wasn't fooling anyone anymore, not even myself. Every $dollar at home felt like betrayal. Every laugh with him felt like a countdown. I was stretched thin, caught between comfort and desire, between loyalty and the truth I didn't want to face. He started pulling away before I did. Not in words, but in the way his messages became shorter, less playful. The way he stopped asking when we'd see each other next. I felt the shift immediately. It was like someone had turned down the volume on what used to feel like music. I didn't question it at first. Maybe I didn't want to admit he was bracing for the goodbye I hadn't gathered the strength to give. When we did meet again, the silence between us was heavier than usual. He looked tired. Felt it too. I tried to pretend everything was fine. I laughed at something meaningless. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He asked how things were at home, and for the first time I didn't lie. I said it was quiet. That I didn't recognize myself anymore. He nodded but said nothing. I think we both knew we were approaching the edge. He told me he didn't want to be the reason I blew up my life. That he cared too much to watch me fall apart trying to live 2 stories at once. I wanted to scream at him that he wasn't the reason. That I'd already been drifting before he showed up. But I just sat there, unable to form anything honest. He kissed my forehead when we said goodbye. Not my lips. And that's how I knew it was the last time. After that, I avoided his usual spots. Changed my route. Deleted our thread. Took his number out of my phone but not out of my mind. The ache didn't fade, it just got quieter. I thought I'd feel relief, but all I felt was empty. I kept checking the places we used to meet, even when I knew he wouldn't be there. Home I tried harder. I cooked dinner. Questions. Pretended I was trying to fix something. My partner noticed the change. He started opening up again, like he believed maybe we were still salvageable. But I couldn't feel what I used to. Every gesture felt like playing a role I no longer connected to. I'd stare at his hands and wonder why they didn't make me feel the way they used to. Why I wasn't moved by his kindness anymore. Why I couldn't reach for him without feeling false. One night I asked myself what I was doing, really doing. Was I staying out of guilt? Out of fear? Out of some sense of duty? And then the answer hit me. I was staying because it was easier than starting over. Because I was afraid that chasing happiness might leave me with nothing. That thought sat with me for days. I stopped trying to pretend. Stopped initiating small talk. Stopped forcing myself into a routine that no longer fit. My partner noticed. He asked if there was someone else again, but this time his voice cracked when he said it. I didn't respond. I think the silence was its own confession. He didn't push. He just stood there, nodding slowly, like he'd been preparing himself for this. We didn't break up that night. We just stopped pretending we weren't already broken. I didn't reach back out to the other man. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I knew what would happen. We'd fall into each other again. We'd say all the things we didn't finish. We'd convince ourselves we could make something work out of the ashes. But I couldn't do that to him. or to myself. We weren't built for longevity. We were built for moments. And we had them. There was no big fight. No dramatic ending. Just a quiet fade. A slow acceptance that not all love stories are meant to last. Some are just meant to wake you up. Months passed. The silence got easier to live with. I learned how to sit with myself again. Some nights were hard, especially the ones where I remembered how he looked at me like I was worth unraveling for. But I also stopped lying. Stopped hiding behind other people's expectations. I still think about him. Sometimes when a song comes on. Or when I pass someone who wears the same cologne. I wonder if he ever thinks about me. If he ever drives past the old cafe and remembers how it all started with a stupid joke about the weather. I don't regret it. That's the part that will make people hate me. But I don't. Because he showed me what it felt like to be fully seen. To be wanted without hesitation. To be reminded that there's more to life than keeping the peace. The truth is, I wasn't looking to cheat. I was looking to feel alive again. And I found it. Briefly. Beautifully. And then I let it go. What happened between us will never make sense to anyone else. That's okay. It wasn't for them. It was for me. A chapter one wasn't supposed to write, but did anyway.